I've got Donna Van Life here. I hope you guys go check your channel out. She's really awesome. I've been watching her for a while. And so I'm really glad she's here. I hope you guys have some questions. I know I have a lot of questions for her. And I made a comment, and I thought it was funny because I've been watching some of your stuff to try to learn and kind of get some questions to ask you that maybe you don't always get asked, like where do you go to the bathroom? Um, but when I said that I don't think I could do a minivan because it's so small, because honestly, the size of this, like lengthwise and widthwise, is fine. I just wish I had a high top to be able to stand up, but I think it's
Yeah.
about the perfect size. And you're in a minivan, but you told me that you started out in a car, so I
Yeah.
thought it'd be awesome if you could tell everybody how it was starting out in a car and not even a van.
Well, right now I feel very not legitimate because obviously I'm sitting in like standard housing, which I'll be until June 1st. But this was housing I had through work. Um, but yeah, so basically I had to leave a situation really, really quickly. And the only option at that point was to sleep in the car I had. And at the time, it was supposed to be temporary. Um, and then honestly, because like I was working in the San Francisco Bay Area, like the prices are ridiculous. And this was not the first time I'd looked into nomad living. I'd looked into it before. I'd actually owned a Class C before. The Class C was too much. I literally had no idea what I was doing. It had a leaky roof. It was a cheap piece of crap, and I was on the East Coast. And there was just a lot that went wrong in that situation. When I realized like I was starting to plan to stay sort of as a vehicle dweller, the easiest thing I could get was a minivan. And the thing that the minivan would give me that the car didn't was a bed. And that was all. I was sick of sleeping in sort of the front seat of a car.
Right.
Terrible. Like it was a Toyota Avalon. It was honestly kind of longish. For a very short period, I was doing a storage unit. So in that initial transition, before I just started getting rid of stuff, I did have a storage unit. And so that alleviated some of what I had to carry in the car, but there was still a lot in the car. I got sick of also having, so it's hard to explain except that once you've had less, the upgrade always feels good. like so
Yeah.
it was like by the time I was able to get the minivan, um it was just like I get to have a bed. And so that was the big like focus of getting a minivan, was like being able to have the bed, and it's more space than the car. And now I've been in the minivan almost 2 years, and honestly I am thinking about a larger van, but I'm like, I don't want to go like the minimal of what I can get. I'm comfortable in the minivan. I've made the minivan work for the amount of time I have. It has been helpful having the cargo carrier on top. A Toyota Sienna is one of the larger minivans because minivans are really weird. They have this really weird scale difference. You know, one company's minivan might be just a little bit more compact than another company's minivan.
Right.
Um, but now that I've been in it 2 years and I've just made it work, I mean, there are probably people who are like, I don't see how you can live in a cargo van. You know, there are people also outside of you sort of with that same thought, like, how are you living in a cargo van? Like, I couldn't do it. You can't stand up. There are people who cannot understand anybody who does long-term time in a vehicle where they can't stand up. Rather, it's longer and more roomier than mine, because cargo vans have so much more room than my minivan, or it's a
Oh
minivan
yeah.
car. There's a lot of people who can't comprehend that. So I think we just all, if you want the life, you adjust to the access point that you have to it. If that makes any sense. I don't know if that
It
answers.
it does it does make a lot of sense, and I actually there's also the flip side of that I've gotten, and so I'm sure you've gotten a lot. I wish I could live in a van and do what you're doing.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So it's kind of a weird thing. Like I don't know how I couldn't do that, and I wish I could do that, or at the same time. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Speaking of weird, shout out to Chrome, because we're both weirdos over there.
Yeah.
I I think it's a weirdo, not just people that follow them, but the channels, because there's a super produced uh, videos that get made fun of, like by Dave TD and all that kind of stuff, and then there's real van channels. So it's kind of funny to have them called weirdos in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, so I know part of why you're doing what you're doing is because you like to work in theater and do theatrical stuff. Um, so what was it that made that spark in your mind, realizing that if you lived in your vehicle, you could have more opportunity to chase what your dream is?
I mean, I think again, this like isn't the first time I had the thought. When I was back in Maryland, I had the Class C briefly. But also like since I've graduated college, I haven't really had like a settled like home. Like I graduated college, I started a internship in Virginia. So immediately I wasn't going that far, but I was leaving the state. Um, and then when it came to like looking for work, again, when I was in Maryland, there weren't a lot of opportunities that were like well paying. Theater, a lot of entertainment industries, like they're very low pay to start, and then as you move up the food chain, you might be one of those people. It's like anything else that gets to make a lot of money. For every working actor out there who has like a mansion, there's like 30 working actors struggling to like pay their rent every month because maybe they've been on a couple of shows here and there, but they're also working at Starbucks, and that's just the way those contracts go. You have this awesome contract and you're working and you're feeling legitimate, and then that contract ends and nothing comes right after it. You're like, well, I need money. And so you go and you do some little side gig and then you get back into it. But at the same time, like the ability to say yes is increased when you can just drop it and go. And I've been in situations where it's like, okay, I'm living in this situation, but in order to take this other opportunity, i.e., what brought me to California in the first place, I was in Maryland. I was working at a college that was about to end. They were changing the job description. I could have applied for that. And I'd also applied for this other thing in anticipation of that job ending. And I got the thing in California. And it literally meant dropping my whole life in Maryland and going to California. At the time, I had a roommate. Luckily, she had a partner. And so her partner was just going to move into the apartment. And I got, it wasn't like, oh, I was going to leave her like holding the absence of me financially. And so I just came across the country because it all worked out. But it's always sort of been the reality of that job that I'm not going to have a job where go 9 to 5. Well, I could have, but I didn't want it, and so
Right.
flexibility allowed for the job. Now, of course, Fantasy Dawn wanted, the fancy van that looks like a micro apartment.
The sprinter with the
Yeah.
3,000 watts of solar on the top, so you can run your microwave and pop your popcorn while you're sitting there editing your videos. Yeah.
Yeah. And because I had the Class C before, like I knew it needed to be something that could park on city streets.
Yep.
So the idea of getting an RV was already, by the time I'd reached that stage, was already out of my head. And it was such a collective, like long string of events, including the fact that I was just in a bad roommate situation that I had to get out of when I just flat out just decided to just move into the car. And things that sort of went away and came back over time, where I was like in the situation, he's like, you know what, I'm just going to commit to this situation I'm in. And also like I was in debt. And I was in debt to 4 credit cards when I started. And now I only have 2. 2 are paid off. So I'm living in a place that I own. I don't give a crap that it's a minivan. I own, my place. And 2 of the 4 credit cards I started, indebted to are now gone. So like it's a combination of so many things that just worked out. And I've always wanted to travel, and like living in the van when there's like nothing going on, I'm like, well, I can, on this, unless I have like, oh, I have to be at work, whatever day. But like
Right.
for the weekend, if I just want to go somewhere, I can just go. My whole house is coming with me. You know,
Yeah.
I don't have to think too much about it. You know, so if I want to go hang out somewhere that's near a beach for the whole weekend, I'm not like leaving home and leaving the responsibilities at home because the house is going to go where I go.
Yeah. Or if you're there and you get too tired and you're like, oh man, I gotta drive home. No, I just gotta walk outside. I'll go to
Yeah,
sleep.
yeah.
So what is your favorite, like, since you started YouTube, like what are some things that has happened that have made you like really excited to, or start to realize, hey, I'm a YouTuber now kind of too, on top of doing this other thing that I'm doing?
Well, it's funny because when I started, I didn't think of myself like as a YouTuber. It was more I wanted to be, you know, sort of that other side where people, you know, people tend to see the, you know, the fancy travel channels as, you know, YouTubers, and like uh live in their van and work as homeless. And it was more I wanted to like be another image against that image. So I didn't start like thinking of myself as a YouTuber. Um and then people started watching my channel. Like my most excited day was the day I had 100 subscribers, which in YouTuber
Yeah.
world is nothing. And I was like, "There's 100 people watching my channel. Why?"
Yeah, I think it changes your mindset, because I said that too. I mean, I'm almost at a year. I'm 2 days away from a year, so it's
Yeah,
cool the timing of you coming on and everything. And it'll be cool when I get to 1,000. But I even put a video out when I hit 100 because I couldn't believe that I hit 100. And I think
yeah,
it changes your mindset to go, okay, well, I'm at least entertaining enough for 100 people, so there
yeah,
must be something to it.
yeah. And it's funny, like in the YouTuber world or in just social media world in general, like 100 can feel like nothing because you have people out there with like, you know, whatever K subscribe, like 30K, 40K, 50K, 100K. 100K is when you get your like YouTube button.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you think about 100 people in a room, that 100 people have subscribed to you, or even that you're, even if they haven't subscribed, like you're getting 100+ reviews, like 100 people in a room is a lot of people who are listening to you,
Yeah.
or interested in you, or want to hear what you have to say, or people that you're reaching. And you realize like that's a lot. Excuse me for a second.
Oh, no problem. Dude, I can recall in school. I mean, I know I'm probably not the only one, but you were you. Do you ever remember being scared to read in front of your class or talk in front of your class? And that was maybe max, maybe 40 people. So, like you're saying, when you get 100 people subscribed to you, you're already talking in front of a bigger amount of people than you did in class in school.
Yeah,
So it's crazy to think about.
yeah.
How do you deal with, because with that, how do you deal and keep an even kill with people that are negative towards your channel, or leave negative comments?
Well, if it's annoyingly negative, honestly, I delete it. I have no problem with legitimate criticism. Like I got some feedback on a video the other day about my lighting, and that was totally legitimate criticism. They were like, good information, but I could barely see you, blah, blah. And that wasn't being like mean spirited. But honestly, if it's mean spirited, I just delete it. I don't leave it in my energy. Like, there's nothing wrong with like a legitimate like channel criticism, like, hey, your sound was kind of bad, you know, would have been helpful if I could hear you better. Oh, your lighting was like, those are like, and some people don't like those, like they don't want to hear that either.
Yeah, yeah. No,
um,
I
but
think
yeah,
that's helpful to people, at least people that want to try to be better. Like
yeah,
sometimes I don't notice something, so if you say something, I'm like, oh hey, I'll try to watch out for that next time.
yeah, yeah.
Hello, hey, I've got a bunch more people coming. Hi, Blue Wave. Hi, everybody. Um,
Hi
so
everybody in the comments. Sorry, I have to be watching
yeah,
them.
this, this is the Donna Van Life. If you haven't, please go check out her channel. She's in a minivan, so she's in. You guys, a lot of these guys that are in here have RVs. Some of them, even in this community, have like new Mars and stuff like that. So they see me living in the cargo van, like I was saying. Oh man, a minivan would be kind of tight for what I want to do. They look at me like I'm nuts. So seeing you in a minivan will probably really blow their mind.
I think in a future part of my existence, I wouldn't mind like having like if I had like land and I could have like the RV and the van and switch them out, depending on the situation. Like if I'm going wild camping and I have a small RV, that would be awesome. I'd be standing up, I'd have my accessible kitchen and all of those things. But also then like when I need to be in the city, when I need to travel in the city, like switch out to the smaller like van. Like I think that would be perfect. But right now it's like for monetary reasons of most of my income still comes from regular employment. Even though I'm not in a minivan right now, I feel so not legitimate because I'm like sitting in this like apartment that I'm gonna have to leave on June 1st.
Your
Anyway,
your video yesterday showed you packing up the vehicle,
yeah,
and you were saying that was a twin size uh, sheet for your bed there. But
yeah,
I saw how far around that it went, and I was like, because I put a twin size bed in here, and I still got plenty of room. But
yeah,
that's a small enough bed for me. And I saw how much that sheet went around there, and I was like, man, I know you're happy, like you were saying earlier. You're happy to have a bed, so that's like you're saying. The smaller that you start out, the more you upgrade, the more appreciative you are of the extra space and extra everything that you get.
yeah. Well, also like honestly, I'm five. What am I? 5'4". So I'm not that tall. The bed, which is a smaller version of one of the Coleman camping cots, is like 5'7".
Right.
Um, so even stretched out, the sides are a little short, but honestly, I sleep curled up in a sleeping bag anyway. Um, and even before, way back in old life, I had been in an apartment where I couldn't afford a bed, and I was sleeping on a camping cot. Um, so even in like standard housing, I had slept on a cot before, so it's just it's not that big of a deal.
Right, right. No, I look. I lived in a truck for years, and I try to tell people, other than being able to stand up in here, I actually have more room in here than I do in a semi truck.
Yeah,
Just because of how I laid it out and everything. So,
yeah,
and I can always buy one of those van conversion bubbles and cut the top off and put it on. So
yeah.
it's not that big a deal. But what? So we all started with one subscriber. Right? Everybody starts with one subscriber. So
Yeah.
what motivated you to start sharing your life on YouTube in the first place? Like, why did you decide to start doing it?
Honestly, it was I say this in one of my super early videos. It was a comment on Reddit, which was somebody said, and this was obviously a person not speaking to a larger like RV van community. They were like, "Well, has anybody ever gotten a van and just like stayed where they are but lived in the van?" And there was a comment that said, "That's just homelessness." And I was annoyed by that comment on the original commenter's behalf. um, and so that was the motivation. And I, of course, had seen other channels on YouTube where people were doing like, day living in, living in a vehicle while doing a regular job, not necessarily doing big travel and just doing it for the financial, need of needing to live cheaper. There's a lot of college students that do it. I'd even met this mom and son, and their story was a little more sad. I'd met this mom and son, and she had come here. They were Asian because her son had gotten into college. She was divorced from her husband. He had been the wage earner, and for some reason, her son didn't get into the dorms. And so they had to live out a vehicle. Now they were desperate to get out of their situation. And I hope they did. I didn't retain a relationship with them. I met them in passing when I was seeking out some resources. And yes, they're sort of homeless, but it's such a simplified version because when people say that, they're talking about vagrants who are this very negative stain, um, and maybe not of their own free will, but they're saying this very negative thing when they're saying it. And I didn't think that was fair, and that was sort of my motivation to make sort of my first video. I mean, also I studied theater and film in college. I was like, where did I go? In college. And so I'd done some video stuff before. And I've been watching Chrome's channel, and it sort of inspired me to sort of want to play with the camera again. And so I started doing that as well. Like, so there was two motivations: one, to open up that other image, and two, just to play with the camera again. I would like, honestly, myself not to be the subject, but
It's the easiest subject to find that's always willing if you're willing to do
yeah.
it. So, uh, what has been up to this point anyway the best interaction that you've had with one of your subscribers, like one that you remember the most, that like touched you the most that you've had?
There's two, and I couldn't pick between them. The first one was I needed my timing belt and water pump done, and I definitely did not have the money that a shop wanted to do it. And one of the shops I called, they asked me about the mileage and year of my van, and when I told them, they were like, "Man, you should just buy a new van." And in my head, I was like, "I'm glad you can just do that. Like, screw you." I didn't say it out loud, but that was what I was thinking. And then
I've been there.
I talked about it on YouTube. And that's another great thing about YouTube is suddenly you have all these people. If you don't have any other way to reach people, like if you're not meeting other vehicle dwellers just on a daily basis, like having a YouTube channel get you in contact with all these other people. And somebody not far from me was like, I know a mechanic. He's a good dude, loves working on Toyotas. She hooked me up with this guy. He was like so much less than the shop. He charged me a little bit for his work, but it wasn't like that hourly rate you get at the shop. And I just, brought my van to his house. He showed me what was going on. He even showed me something that Firestone hadn't shown me when they did a check on my van. And it was a part I ended up needing to replace. He was like, I know you don't have the money right now, but also this, keep attention to that. And I appreciated that guy so much. And so like, that was just touching. And Susan, actually, she picked me up so that I had somewhere to be while he was working on my van, and we ended up just hanging out while my van was being worked on. So that was really nice, and she was really wonderful, and she gave me a lot of great feedback about my channel. So yeah, I think she made me take it a little more seriously than I had been up to that point, because it was just something I was kind of doing as a hobby. And then the other thing it was just so weird to me. It was like the weirdest thing that ever happened. I was delivering Uber Eats because I do, like, when I need some change, I'll do gig economy delivery jobs. And so I was doing Uber Eats, and I just picked up the food, and I was pulling out this shopping center. And so, I was waiting to exit and make my turn, and this woman drives in and she shouts out the window. She was like, I watch you all the time. I'm like, that is so weird, because I'm not like a regular person. In fact, I'm doing Uber Eats to make money.
And somebody saying, "I know you. I watch you all the time," and you're holding somebody's bag of burgers or whatever you got going. Yeah, that's the kind of moments that I'm just waiting for, because it'll be exciting to experience, because I know, like, honestly, you're one of the first people to say yes to the interviews, so that helped me along. Just being like, okay, I have a good idea. Um, I have, a good thing going here, and it gave me the confidence to go ask more people. So I do appreciate that a lot, because it's leading crazy places, and I hope, and one of the reasons we're doing it on here, by the way, is you're heading back down to California, because I was going to head down to Oregon, but we found a way to make this work. So I really appreciate you being here, and it's you know just watching your channel and other people's channel that don't have the $60,000, $80,000 Sprinter made me go, well, my friend's got a cargo van out back. I can buy it, get it running, all that kind of stuff, and then go work this out because I'm really passionate about finding stories and sharing stories and doing all that film stuff. So
Yeah.
for me, it's, and I've already done truck driving. I know how to live on the road. I know how to
Yeah.
live on 12 volt. I didn't even really have inverters back when I was doing it. So I know how to, there's 12-volt frying pans I know about. But so it's just, I like sharing out people's stories like yours. And um, what what would you say to somebody? Because I said it when I interviewed my sister. I said it. We all suck at the start. Your first videos just suck.
Yeah.
You gotta keep doing it till you get better. But we all suck at the beginning. So when like just to give people an idea of where you are now, when was it that you started your channel? Like how long ago was it?
So let me think, because I started the channel. Well, I started recording for the channel I hadn't started while I was in the car. So it's not quite two years. So like it's been a little over a year and a half. First of all, don't stop asking. Um, I've obviously done a couple of videos with other YouTubers, but there's probably been at least 5 like no's or no answer. I'll mix those together. There's a lot of people don't answer, and there's people who say, hey, I don't have time, or they say yes, and then it ultimately doesn't work out. So don't stop asking. But yeah, so I think honestly RTR helped. When I went to RTR in 28, that was 19. It was 2019. It was January 2019. Because when there were just a lot of YouTubers there, and honestly, some stuff is just like getting eyes that wouldn't see you otherwise. To know that you're out there. YouTube on its own is, thank you so much. YouTube is like this sea of trying to get YouTube to recommend you to new people, and that's how you get the new subscribers. It's great the people that you capture like just through the natural stream, but like I did a video with Curious Carly, for example, and then she did a video with me, and that's sort of a relationships that lasted. I was randomly in like somebody's video and enough that people got curious and would like trickle over, and hopefully some of them stayed and thought I was interesting. So it's a lot of that. I tend to mediate how much I use other social media because I know I will get stressed out and can't keep up with it. Some people are really good about having a YouTube and a Facebook and a Twitter and an Instagram and other thing and who knows and a TikTok and all those things. I can't cross stream like that. My brain would like explode. But certain videos I'll post to my Facebook just to see it. And I think also like my first couple of videos I maybe did it for my first few videos, because not everybody's going to click on it, but if 3 people do, that's 3 people you wouldn't have got just naturally through YouTube. And so it's like I've done all those little things. I have not done them consistently. I do not watch the algorithm like a shark, because I've seen a lot of people get frustrated with that. They're like, "Oh, I'm making videos every day, and why is my revenue sucking?" And has something against me. And a lot of times YouTube doesn't have anything against you. They're just promoting the content that's going to be most attractive to their advertisers. And so it's just a journey to become that content in whatever opportunities are available to you. I think meetups are great in general. In my case, like it was RTR because it does expose you to a community in person. I did, mostly because of Chrome, I did eventually get business cards because I was in a 7-Eleven one time and I opened the side of my van and this couple was sitting in their car and this guy turned around and he was like, "That's a camper!" And he was like, so and he had all these questions, and so I started telling him. I was like, "Oh, like yeah, I live in it full time," and I just told him everything, and like he wasn't disgusted. He was like interested, and he wanted to know more. And so I reached in the van and I pulled out a business card, And honestly, I only did it because I saw Chrome do it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's a way to like grab a couple people on random. So it's just a bunch of random stuff. But I think
Yep.
also like ask yourself what you can deal with without feeling like you are going too crazy. Like if I had to like tweet every day and perfect Insta picture and also do YouTube videos and also keep up with comments, like all those things would drive me crazy. So it's like this point of also knowing to say, you know what? If I never have 20,000 subscribers, I'm still not going to put this stress on myself over the YouTube channel, because also I think like that infects your soul, and it's going to infect the type of person you are when you are on camera and you are the subject of this thing. You know?
Well, that's when you're talking about when people get obsessed with it, it bleeds over into their videos. And
Yeah.
what I've noticed, because I started, and when I turned a corner with my videos, is I started watching them as I would a viewer. Do I get bored when I'm like editing it? Do I get bored watching it? Well, then why am I putting it out there? Because somebody else is going to get bored watching it.
Yeah.
And then also just when they bring, oh well, it doesn't get this many views, it doesn't get that many views. Most of the people that watch this don't care. They're watching to see what you're doing for the day or what you're doing. They don't care if you're not getting a bunch of views. And
Yeah.
so I think the negativity, because I've noticed on my channel, the more positive I've been, the more people come in and hang out here. And like my people that come watch the live streams are mostly other channels. So I know I'm doing something right if other channels are going to spend their time watching what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So that's, and like you were saying, that one, was there anybody else that came along that made you feel like you had a talent for doing YouTube, for doing the stuff on camera, besides that one lady that you talked about? Because I had somebody do that for me and made me go, okay, I actually have a little bit of talent at this.
Yeah. I think it's probably my friends who don't watch my channel regularly, as dumb as that sounds. Because my friend Kiera, I said her name, she'll be fine. One friend, like she did not agree with me moving into a minivan. She thought I was crazy. She tried to talk me out of it. She spent at least like a year trying to talk me out of it. And now it's just like, oh, it's just your life. I don't care. But right from the beginning, she was like, you really have like something on camera. You're really likable on camera. And I thought she was just like full of crap. And then all of a sudden I would get these random comments on my videos out of nowhere. Excuse me.
No problem.
I'm having allergy issues, so
Yeah, there's lots of pollen now blowing in the Northwest.
Yeah, and so like the fact that she had like positive things to say about a thing she didn't agree with as far as my lifestyle was really motivating. So yeah, that just felt good. And so yeah, I have like a couple of friends who were like, "Oh, you're actually really like nice on camera, and like, you know, you have like this great energy and da 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 da." And that sort of feedback has felt really good. I don't know, you're always your own worst critic. Like I don't know that I've ever felt I was good at it.
I don't think if you're honestly working at it and want to try to get better all the time, I don't think you'll ever be happy with yourself. But it's just hearing it from other people that it's like at least decent enough to watch, where you're like, okay, at least I don't feel like such a dirt for putting it out there.
Yeah. And I think everything's like, it's an improvement also. Like I can see the improvement on like past just understanding YouTube, even if it's like sometimes I used to put like 4 subjects in a video and I realized like that was confusing. Like people wanted to know what video they were watching, especially at the beginning when they don't know you. They're like, what information do you have for me? Because most people don't seek out, like you do find personalities you like and get attached to and want to watch.
Right.
But most people watching you the first time, they're like, what information do you have for me that I can't get from the 30,000 other YouTubers out there? And so like, if you sort of focus your content, like, hey, I'm going to talk about like this, like power bank and why I like it. And I wasn't, giving it, yeah. And I wasn't giving it for free. Like, I spent my money on this, so I'm going to tell you the truth, type thing. Even though if anybody wants to give me something for free, no, let me stop. But like, starting to do videos that were more focused and more specific was something I learned earlier. And every once in a while I do that video that's just for me, where I'm like, you know what, whatever, this is like, I want to talk about it video. But once you get the audience, those people are going to come see almost anything you do.
Right.
Like, there's like a book review channel I watch, and she just reviewed, there's a new book in the Hunger Games series. And she just reviewed it, and there was literally somebody in your comment section, in her comment section, that said, I like you when I watched this review, and I've never read anything in the Hunger Games series. And so like that happened, over time. And just realizing those things that are valuable to people. And it's not even just trying to get to subscribers. Like, okay, what's valuable to people that they can come to me for? And I think that part also was a journey. Because I don't really feel like I know stuff, but then like I did a video recently about how to get mail as a nomad, and I realized how many things people don't know that exist out there. As far as ways to get mail and packages, the fact that mail and packages are separate. Not everything comes from, the post guy. It comes from UPS and FedEx, and sometimes there can be more hiccups if it's not, the post service. And like a lot of people didn't realize that stuff. And I even realized, I was like, honestly, my information on PO boxes are old because I don't currently have a PO box. So like, but what I know is this,
Right.
But all that was helpful to people, even though I wasn't like the most like well-versed person on the subject.
It's surprising. I think somebody else said it before. It's surprising what you don't know that you know. Like, because you just take for granted that you have this knowledge, but there's so much knowledge in the world that there's people that study something else their whole life that don't know how to plug in a toaster or something like that. You know what I mean? You put out a video like that, they're like, I can finally fix my own sink. It's not that hard, but they didn't learn that stuff, and so
well, it's like saying you were a truck driver, like you knew about 12 volt, like, there was a whole world of electricity that opened up to me when I had to live out of a car, like,
Yeah, it's stuff you learn, and I think that's been the greatest thing about YouTube is you're able to find stuff you learn, and then you're able to find cool people. Because I don't know if I saw you on a video that Chrome did or a suggested video around the same time that I found him, but I think it was something about doing something in your van, and I watched you, and anybody that I watch that I like their personality comes out or whatever they're doing, I'll subscribe to them, because even if their content isn't, like, your content's good, but even if their content isn't good yet, I want to see where they go with it, because they're an interesting person to follow.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't know about you, I didn't have as many friends in real life as I do now that I've started a YouTube channel. Like, all the people that come in here every morning, like, you probably know Justin and Christina's RV van life. You've probably seen them around before.
I've seen their channel, yeah.
Yeah. So they come in here, and we have a community where we all come in. And so for me, I've been doing it almost a year. A lot of these other people I've seen, they've made it to where they're getting monetized and they're getting to that level. And so I think it's really important to people that if you're really passionate about doing this, is something you want to do, it's just going to take time. It's not going to, I mean, some people get lucky and happen overnight, but it's actually better if it takes a little time, because then by the time people see your stuff, you actually have stuff that you don't go, ooh, I can't believe I put that video out. No, it's cool. Hey, you want to see my video? Look what I just put out. It's a different feeling than when you first start out.
Yeah. And I think, like, sometimes you also just get one like really big hit video. I think I feel like we've heard him a lot. Chrome say recently, like, his one day van build still gets a bunch of hits. And that was a huge. Like that was one of my favorite videos that really like got me like kind of permanently into him. Which is funny because his van looks nothing like that now. Like
No.
nothing. Like he was doing these plastic bins and he built this really simple bed and like he was off and like that has been like my motivation from the beginning and that's exactly what I did when I got my minivan. I ripped all the seats out, I put them on a truck and they went away. I have no idea what happened to those seats. I'll never see them again. Some plastic bins and a camping cot and like some plastic drawers from Target. None of those things are in my van now, not one of them, but it was a way to start, but also like to put out a video like that where this is how I am starting. I think it's also important. And yeah, the quality of that video is different, but the importance of the journey sort of stays the same.
Yeah.
And so and that's sort of what's important because like once people meet you, they will also want to know who you were. And there are people who will go back and watch those videos. And that'll also help your channel because if they catch you on video 75 and they're like, okay, now I'm curious, and they go back and watch 1 through 74, that's still your view count. And all of us do it. We upload the video and then we're like, okay, hits.
Yeah, right when it first comes out. But I put one out every day because that helps me just see a new one every day, so I don't get actually stuck. I don't get stuck on the numbers from the last one. I'm like, well, new one tomorrow. Let's see what happens. But yeah, everybody does, and I do it because I love to watch. I love to watch the comments come in and answer them when they come in.
Yeah.
Because in all honesty, the views are cool, but just the interaction that you have with people, I think, is the coolest part of YouTube. I think it makes it better than any other video medium because you can, if the creator decides to, because there's creators that don't. I mean, there's creators that don't. They send off their editing and everything now and all that kind of stuff. But there are some creators that have a million people that still answer comments, and I think that's the coolest part of YouTube is just the interaction with the people and just the people that you meet. Because there's people that are in here in this chat that I would probably never met in my whole life. There's probably people that you've talked to that you might have never even met, never said hi to in your whole life. That it's been kind of cool to meet and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I see a comment by Lynn T. Yes, I live in my minivan. I was like, so yes, I do live in my minivan. My minivan is my house. I'm going to do a quick summary of why I'm sitting in this apartment right now. So I came to Oregon before COVID-19 to start a job at Oregon Shakespeare Festival. I was going to be a what's known as a production assistant, which is basically I was the assistant to the assistant stage manager. But it was a really big job and it would have allowed me to sort of get into the union. I've still gotten some points to get into the union. Thankfully, they still approved 2 weeks of my points. Once they started shutting down things for COVID-19, they told us we could stay in employee housing until June 1st if we needed to. Being given this opportunity, I've used that opportunity to make a lot of changes and tweaks to my van. So if you go to my channel, The Dawn of Van Life, you will see that I've been upgrading and changing the van. On June 1st, well, technically the last day in May, I'll be leaving here. So this is temporary work housing that was provided by Oregon Shakespeare Festival because I was down here to do a job for them. I worked for 3 days and then shutdown started. And I was supposed to leave actually on April 19th for another job back in the Bay Area, which also just canceled. I just didn't get to do the job. And so like, I stayed here past April into June because I honestly didn't know what was going on in California. A lot of the news and media was confusing to a certain extent. And so if I had the opportunity to stay put and work on the van, I decided to stay put and work on the van. And so I'm in this this work housing until June 1st, but I still live in my van. It's still my full-time house that I'm moving back in and have been preparing to move back into. Sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. What What's one mistake as you've grown that people as they grow you think that they should avoid that you wish you would have avoided when you were as you were progressing up to where you're at now
In van life,
in van life or on YouTube?
in van life specifically, there's a lot of things I bought to get by, which I understand when you don't have a lot of money. Like I understand not having a lot of money, so you can't buy like 300 watts of solar and a couple of batteries and a charge controller. You also have no idea how to hook that stuff up. But just for an example, I bought the cheapest power station I could find on Amazon. Just because I was like, well, how am I going to keep my phone charged when it's not plugged in and da da da. And it was like probably one of the biggest waste of money that I spent. I could have got one of those smaller power banks just to keep my laptop and my and just one of those plug-in 12-volt inverters to keep my laptop and my phone charged, and that would have got me by. But I was like so desperate for this larger solution that ended up being a waste of money. If you can at least go midline, I think like that's better. If you can just make that little bit of extra effort, you don't have to go top end, but if you don't get the cheapest thing you can find. And the power station is just an example of that, because eventually, yeah, it will just become wasted money you could have dedicated to something a little bit better. I really wish I just started buying the pieces for my solar system earlier. Like even if I just bought, an AGM battery, a nice one, not the cheapest one I could find, and put it in the van, not hooked up to anything, just floating around with me until I could afford the rest of it. I think it would have been a better investment than buying the cheapest power station that I could get. So I would be very, very, I understand needing something right away, but one of the things there's a lot of things where it's like I bought the cheapest thing I could find, and in the long term, it was just an accumulation of a waste of money. So finding ways to like keep things affordable, but not put yourself in the position of getting something that's just so cheap it's not going to work out, I think is just, it's a journey, but also like, if you're just getting it because it's cheap and not because you think it's a deal, and the deal is like, okay, so like for you got a cargo van that you knew you could fix up. If you buy a cargo van because it's cheap, but you literally have no idea how to fix up a van, how confident are you that it's just not going to become like thousands of dollars you've wasted
Right.
in the time that you need to be on the road? Now, if you have, it's just reasonably assessed where you're spending money, especially when you don't have a lot of it. Because for some people, a cheap van is fine because they have the mechanical knowledge to work on it. But if there's some way you can get something a little more mechanically sound, even like for me, I have a lot of mechanical limitations when it comes to working under the hood. I've learned a little bit more along the way, but I knew like mechanical sustainability out the gate needed to be the higher priority, even more so than size. Right. Having a big thing that was my friend Cora did this. She got a big thing that kept breaking down on her, and then she ended up getting a low roof van that was newer. And so for me, that was another advantage of my minivan. Like I had a lot of faith in Toyota. It was in good condition. I kind of overpaid for it, and I would admit that to my dying day. But I needed that mechanical security, and I don't, even though I do feel like I overpaid for it because I know a little bit more about minivan prices, I don't really regret it because like it's lasted me going on 2 years now without a lot of trouble beyond like normal stuff that should have happened because it's a car. But like the power station was a complete waste of money. It was money I threw away. There were other ways I could have kept my devices charged and used that money toward a better power solution instead of the cheapest one I could get at the time. I don't know if any of that made any sense.
It makes sense because I'm looking at all the different things at the same time, so I understand exactly what you're saying. Because I'm trying to build mine cheaply. I mean, I might only have a 100-watt solar panel, but I figure if I have that and a battery, I know how. Like I said, I know all the 12-volt stuff, and that's one place. If you guys want 12-volt accessories when you're on the road, go to a truck stop. They're full of 12-volt accessories, more than you could even imagine are available. They're there. So, what has been your favorite place that you've been since you started back in Maryland?
Um, well, like in Maryland, I was living in like standard housing. But when I came out to California, really honestly, like Ashland is gorgeous. Like I really love being in Oregon. Like it's a gorgeous place, and I plan to do, you know, some adventuring on my way out. You know, but like it's like you know, I said this before. A lot of times in van and RV and all those conversations, we tend to operate in these two extremes, which is like New York City and like the middle of nowhere. And I've said
Mm.
this before, and like there's so much in between those two extremes as far as like small towns and smaller cities versus larger cities. Um, you know, places where you're kind of close to, you know, a more nature environment, but you aren't necessarily, you know, out in the middle of nowhere. And so I really like these little small towns where it's like, yeah, you can probably get to a 7-Eleven really, really easy, but also like there's these gorgeous like scenic areas. Hi, man, like Pain. There's also these gorgeous scenic areas that you can find, and I love sort of that middle space. That middle space is like really great for me. And Ashland is sort of like an ideal representation of that, where they have like there's this little small town feel of shops, but it's not that hard to get to a Walmart. You know, there's a 7-Eleven I can walk to. But like there's also Lithia Park, which has like really gorgeous hikes. It has creeks. It's just beautiful. And so Ashland has been really, really great. It's probably one of my favorite places that I've been. I didn't end up doing the job I was here to do. But still, it was a lovely opportunity just to like come here and be here. I wish I could say I like Canada, but I was there for like not.
Yeah, I Canada's unique, that's for sure. But the thing that you're at, when I was in high school, because I went to high school around here, the high school teacher, that was his jam every year, was to go down there to the Shakespeare Festival was down there, because I guess don't now I might be wrong, but don't they do the whole dress up and everything and all that kind of stuff when they do the festival there? They dress in the period clothing and all that kind of stuff.
Not most of the theater. Most of the theater. I mean, I went to 2 shows. There was nobody dressed up. Like, I'm sure there are events and things that happen. I mean, like it's not like a What am I thinking of?
Renaissance fair.
Renaissance Fair. Yeah, so it's not
Yeah.
Renaissance Fair. In a lot of ways, OSF is just a theater that's based around the tradition of a festival.
Okay.
I'm sure probably stuff happens that I didn't get to experience the whole festival. But it's not a festival in like the traditional sense of the
We still like you though.
yeah, but it's like I'm sure there are like festival things that happen, but like every audience I was with, they were just regular theater goers. And also, mind you, there's always these new ways to like interpret. Also, not all their shows are Shakespeare. They do like non-Shakespeare shows. Like Peter and the Starcatcher was one of the shows that was up before it closed. And there was this other show I saw that was about it was very dancey. It was about an orphan and that was being like tossed around, and she was placed with this family, and because of their religious beliefs so they don't only do Shakespeare, that's their tradition, but they also do other plays. And both of the plays I was here to work on, neither one of them was Shakespeare, even though I did see a Shakespeare while I was here.
That's it's very interesting to learn that, because see, if they would market it like that, they'd probably get more people. But you just hear the Shakespeare Festival, and you're like, well, I read it in school. I wasn't too impressed. Now I like the movies that have been based on the book since then. You know what I mean, or the plays, but just the plays themselves, I'm like, I don't know if I want to hear that. I had a hard enough time interpreting it in English class in high school.
That's because it's a play. You're supposed to watch it, not read it. You know
That's
what's
true.
boring to
That's
read?
true.
You know what's boring to read? Hamlet and whatever fight. Da 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 loses. You know what's fun to watch? Two people actually fighting on stage after well choreographed fights. You know, in this text, it's like A and B fight. A wins. That's all Shakespeare wrote. He does not choreo, which is what you should do as a theatrical writer, which is different from, you know, that's why plays are different from books. Like books are meant for you to, you know, imagine while you're reading it. Plays are for your director, put a picture on the stage. I didn't like Shakespeare in college either. I like it much better watching it. And even if you don't catch all the words, you can catch the idea of the story. But I think at this point, theatrical people know that a lot of companies, the reason why a lot of companies start with Shakespeare is because he's free. That's why they start with Shakespeare. You can use Shakespeare for free. You can change him. And then as you start to gain money as a company, and OSF has reached that point because they use union actors and all that stuff, then you can start to explore other works that you can afford to pay for. But Shakespeare's free. That's why a lot of companies start with it. And Gina Payne, Chrome was great. It was a really crowded event. Cruz is huge. Like you can tell he's big on camera, but oh my God, Cruz is huge. That is a big dog. Maybe I should say he's a husky dog. I guess he's not really big because he's not really tall. He's a little short bulldog, but that's a big dog. But he's a cutie. But the event was very, very crowded. There were a lot of people. Chrome was a really nice dude, but I didn't really get to spend a lot of time with him. So I have a lot of regrets that I didn't get there earlier, get to spend more time with him. But he was really nice, really hospitable, you know, tried to make time for everybody. He's really, really great. I hope I get to meet him again. You know.
And Gina, we do a thing here because we all came together as a community and try to set times so we all don't step on each other doing lives. And she's actually going to be live right after this. She's going to start being live on Mondays right after my show. So after we're done here in a couple of minutes, please go over to Gina's chat and go hang out there for a little bit. But what would you say to somebody out there who feels like all the uploading they're doing isn't getting anywhere? Like any of these guys in here that are feeling bad about where they're at right now, what would you tell them to keep them going? Like, say, what advice would you give them? I guess.
At the end of the day, like, do it for you. Because you can go crazy trying to do it for other people. That doesn't mean don't try to improve. Sort of look at the kind of things that like people respond to. Ask yourself how you can change up your content to sort of meet those needs, but don't change into a person you aren't. Like if I tried to be the Matneys, I'm never going to be the Matneys. You know, if I tried to be, you know, Chrome, I'm never going to be Chrome. I don't have that background he has as a DJ, and like he sort of understands music in a way I think even he underestimates. Like I'm never going to be Element Van Life. I think his edits are gorgeous. I like love watching his videos. But I'm not him. So it's like, are there things I can learn from his technique that might improve mine? But I shouldn't get obsessed over being him. And at the end of the day, always ask yourself what's true to you. If you try to be somebody else, you're going to fail anyway because you'll never be them, or you'll be a pale imitation of them. So always bring it back to yourself and why you're doing it. And, you know, honestly, if I'd never gotten to be a big channel, I'd still be doing YouTube, you know? So I don't even consider myself big. I'm not even in the 10K. But if I'd never gotten to the point I am now, I wouldn't have stopped doing YouTube. I was excited when I got 100 subscribers, and that was always enough of a reason to keep going. If that makes any sense.
It does. It does. Well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Check out Donna Van Life over on her YouTube channel and watch her journey. And hopefully I'll talk with you again in the future, Don. Thank you.
All right, love to. All right, bye bye.
But, and I've got one more guest for you guys today. It's I got one more guest that I got in at the last minute. I
Last
saw
minute.
you.
Here we go.
Yeah, I saw. I saw. Well, no, I mean, as far as being able to get you scheduled in, it happened just recently. This is bad Andy Art. Is that right?
Yes, sir. That
I
is
saw him.
correct.
I saw him on Gary V's live stream, um, and I just wanted to talk to you and bring you in um, because I wanted to ask you about. I know you were asking what should I set the floor of um, my painting level at. You know what you were selling your paintings for. I want to know what when it changed in your mind of my art's worth something, and I want to. I think I can sell it for some money. Like when did that thought process change in your head?
So you know what I mean, especially considering as when I talked on Gary's when I talked on T with Gary V, that going through the education of you know what I mean, getting a master's, it's like that even that kind of like establishes you kind of like with essentially like what would be like a floor value of where I always charge by price. Like I'm not one of those guys that likes to uh think about you know what I mean, time and materials and or like you know what I mean, like some people are like, well, the inspiration or like all these other like uh extra factors on what would go into a piece versus I like, as far as like if we're coming to just the brass tacks of it, of putting a monetary value on a piece of work. I'm like, I like having a straightforward formula of the painting is this size, and you know what I mean, that I then charge X by square inch. You know what I mean? So when my first painting sold out of my graduate thesis show for 4 grand, as I talked on Gary V, like that, you know what I mean, that's kind of your established market value. You know what I mean? It sold out of Boston, so it's hard to, you can't really go back. So with that, it kind of like would slow, hypothetically, like if I were to drop price, I might be selling more paintings. But it's also that now with an established market value, it, you know what I mean, it doesn't serve it doesn't serve like new collectors that you know what I mean, you're trying to then lower your market value.
So you had to basically set the price in your head and see if the market would bear that before you went to market with it in the first place.
Yeah, so you know what I mean. Gary talks about it all the time, as far as like you know what I mean. The market dictates what you know what I mean. What anything is worth, not essentially like what you think it's worth. So you know you could essentially try and like price something at like 10 grand or whatever. But if it doesn't sell, then you're all like, well, maybe I should, you know what I mean, try lowering it and see what happens. Or you know what I mean. Then there's the other case where some people price stuff really low. Where I remember that there was this one woman who's kind of like not necessarily a life coach, but like she does like business coaching and stuff like that. And he was like, well, your floor should be X, considering that you already sell it. You know what I mean? You already have clients booked at this, but you know what I mean? The kind of standard in the industry is 6 months. And then for 6 months that maybe you should be charging more for your access. And you know what I mean? You kind of like honor the customers that you already have, but then as you're trying to acquire new customers, see what the market will, you know what I mean, what the market will say, as far as like if you increase your price a little bit. And then it, you know what I mean, like maybe every couple of months or whatever, that you try to keep stepping it up to see what kind of your threshold is, to really establish what's, you know what I mean, what your quote unquote time or your work is worth.
Right. What was your turning point uh, where you decided that you're like? who came up to you and made you think of your art as more valuable than maybe you did at the time? Maybe you didn't think you were as good as you were. Is there anybody that came to you and gave you a little confidence to continue on with it?
Uh, I don't, you know what I mean? Like I've been painting for over, like, kind of seriously for about 10 years. Uh, so I've never really viewed kind of like what I do as like even essentially for like the mass public, or like, you know what I mean? Like I don't paint pretty pictures. That's never been like my bag. I've always kind of made work the way that I was gonna make it for me, and whether it sold was kind of irrelevant. You know what I mean? I've always been pretty fine with, if I'm, you know what I mean? I work a job to pay my bills, and you know what I mean? As far as like my studio practice is just, you know what I mean, do the work and book shows and put the work out there. And if something sells at the price that I want to sell it for, cool. You know what I mean? I'm always willing to negotiate, you know what I mean? Negotiate on a price if someone's really interested on a work. But you know what I mean? If somebody really wants me to come down like 50%, I'm like, nah, I'm not. That doesn't serve me. That doesn't serve
Right,
me as far as, you know what I mean? What I have built to be that quote unquote self worth and market value.
right. And I don't know if it was your studio that you were in when you were talking to Gary. It almost looked like you were inside a school bus. I don't
No,
know if that's your
I
studio.
was in my work van. So
Oh, okay, okay,
so
okay. Because I was like,
I deliver car parts for, you know what I mean, for my gig right now.
right,
And you know what I mean, Gary V, like Tea with Gary V is from, you know what I mean, 10 to 11 or whatever, and I'm like, it's in the middle of my work day, but it's like I got, you know what I mean, I like, you get told that you can be on, you know what I mean, you take that call, you know.
yep, yep. It might be the only chance you get to take that call, so you take the
Right.
call and
You
you
know what
get
I
it for
mean? Like
sure.
I would have, I can't even fathom what, you know what I mean? Like I could have not have foreseen what being on Tea with Gary V has kind of been like for me. Where, you know what I mean? Like he's so good as far as like, he's like, you know, like that your followers on IG are gonna go like to 1,500, and I'm all like, dude, this is gonna be insane. It's gonna be insane because he's so right. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that his community that he's built is so, you know what I mean, like when they see somebody that kind of gets put on and they believe in what they're doing, like they just come out like full force, man, and it's been insane and beautiful. Like so many people have shared their stories with me as far as like people like losing one of their parents or both of their parents, and like time frames, and you know what I mean, that, you know what I mean, you recognize that in other people on how, you know what I mean, we all have similar experiences, but all of our experience are individually our own, but we can empathize with others that are going through something that's very similar to us.
Yes, yes. I've lost both my parents and all that kind of stuff, and I contacted you because I saw you on there. I'm sure I'm probably not the only one that's wanted you to have you on or contacted you about stuff.
Dude,
And
like, and that's what I think is great, you know what I mean, like if anybody is with you, or like for you reaching out, and even Daniel that's been on been on Tea with Gary V, we did an IG live um Saturday night, and you know what I mean, for people that want to reach out and want, you know what I mean, want to just like chop it up, I just feel absolutely humbled that, you know what I mean, somebody wants, you know what I mean, wants to take the time to hear, you know what I mean, to hear my story and just kind of chat it up a little bit, you know.
oh yeah, and I found Gary V last out of all this stuff that I've been working on, and I've been, because other people started building community around here, so I was just following what they were doing, and we help each other out and raise money for each other when they're sick and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
um, did anyone link the artist? Not yet. But he is Bad Andy Art on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm
So,
pretty much bad indie art on all platforms, so
right. That's the way I am, except for Twitter. It had to get reversed for some reason, but okay. But um, I do want to. thank you for stopping in, and please, guys, go check out his art. And it was awesome that you got on, Gary V. I'm hoping
Thanks, man.
hoping one day I get on there too. But thank you for coming on. Thank you guys for being here. Go over to Van Life with Tina Payne next. Thanks, man.
Take care.
You too.